The video game talk has started already. Here we go. Hello, everybody. There's a bunch of people here already. That's fantastic. Hello. Hopefully you can hear me. I can see my voice meter thing jumping around. So I'm not insulting Star Citizen, I promise. It's a running gag with me that Star Citizen is like the cryptid of video games. It's like there's rumors, there's blurry photographs. We got some plaster casts of footprints, but it doesn't actually exist. No one's got any hard evidence that it exists. Good morning, or time zone, whatever it is for you. Okay, I think everything's fine. So like I said, this is a new PC. If you've been following me on social media, you know this is my PC with a lot of LEDs in it. It's shameful, but it's also fun. So, you know, whatever. But this is the first time streaming with it, so I hope everything's good. I had to like migrate over my whole stream setup and get everything reconfigured, and it's a whole 9 yards. So I hope everything is good. I hope you are good out there. Shout out if you can hear me, just so I know that you can. I think my mic actually might be a little hot. Am I a little hot? I think I'm a little hot. I'll turn this down to, I don't know, about there. That's in the yellow, and the yellow is where you should be, as always. Thank you, everybody. So we have, good, okay, you can hear me. So we have a young person who has joined us before, but Amanda Parrish, who apparently is on their mother's account, so possibly not actually named Amanda, but that's, you know, whatever, we're gonna call you Amanda, unless you let us know otherwise. You're 12 years old. That's awesome. So I do have something to tell you because of that. That's the age that I was when I started building puppets. Facebook and Twitch, can you all hear? Yes, thank you. Koya, hello. Wow, we got folks. There are folks, people, humans here. I'm doing well. I hope you are doing well too. It's been a while. It's been like a month. Anyway, as I was saying to Amanda, yeah, I was about 12 when I started building puppets. And here's the thing. This is the old man advice part, right? This is like, now I'm going to be Obi-Wan or something to you. Maybe not. I haven't watched the new series yet, so maybe Obi-Wan's different now. But Obi-Wan is supposed to be the old wise mentor, right? So I started building puppets when I was around 12. Did it for a couple of years, and then like puberty happened, you know, as it does, and suddenly puppets didn't seem all that cool anymore, and things like, you know, rock music and dating seemed much more interesting. So I kind of it just kind of went away, and then literally 30-40 years later it suddenly came back. I regret that. I regret dropping it. I should have kept up. So I don't know if that's going to happen to you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Who knows? But if you feel it, go for it. That's part of you. Keep it. That's my big advice. Currently working on a little surprise drawing for a friend. I'm also about to finish that. Nice. I wish I could draw. I can't really. I can draw a little bit, but nothing like, you know. I can make some shapes and things. But anyway, we're doing stuff. Good. That's the thing. Puppet people are like, we're a special breed, let's face it. We're like, you know, if you got it, you know it. And it is possible to like let that go, but try not to. It's incredibly positive and life affirming, and you know, yeah, we're a little bit weird. Let's face it, puppets are weird. That's the whole thing. It's for sure, and you just gotta like live with that, right? Embrace your weird. Just get into it. Anyway, there's my sage advice, such as it is. So what are we doing today? New series. So. Maybe just because clearly what I need is more coffee. I have my iced coffee here. This is a new series, although series may be stretching it because I'm not sure it's going to be any more than possibly 2 videos. Sometimes it talks back. Yep, that's true. Travis, Demon Dreamer, Purple Cheesecake Zebra. Everyone's here. It's a big, well, The problem is keeping it cold. This room gets pretty hot. So I've got a bunch of ice in here. Hopefully this will stay cold. I don't know. This may be less than iced coffee by the end of it, but I have gotten so used to drinking chicory coffee, Café du Monde from New Orleans, that I make iced coffee with that now, and it is so good. Oh, it is the best. Yeah, well, no, I make it real strong, so it's, believe me, even watered down a bit, it's plenty strong. Oh, really? I'm a bit of the opposite. I find it real hard to draw on like tablets and stuff like that, but on paper I'm a little bit better. It's probably an age thing. I'm used to the resistance on paper much more than a screen. So new series, focus. It's been a while. I'm out of practice. So what we're doing here, this will help. Where's the button? Here it is. We're building an eyebrow rig. And so we've got a lot to get through. I hope we'll get through it this much today. May not, but we'll see. So intro is what you're watching right now. Then we're gonna do a materials overview. Then I'm gonna introduce some of the camera stuff I've had to do to make sure that we can see what I'm doing, because this is gonna be a bit fiddly and tricky. Prepping the spheres, we'll see when we get there. Wire bending wire. The skull socket, if we have time, that's how we're gonna mount the eyes in the skull, and then possibly Q&A if there is time. And I'll always, ask questions as we go. But that's what we're doing. We're building a live hands furry monster with an eyebrow mech. So this is going to be a very simple mech that most builders start out with. And it's the kind of thing that's like, it's more the animal style. It's that kind of unibrow. This isn't like individual eyelids. This is more just like a solid, you can do kind of individual eyelids with this, but this is much more of a brow mech than a eyelid mech. But we'll see when we get there. And this is also probably the simplest kind of mech like this you could make. It's also the only one I've ever done, and I've done it a whole bunch. So it should be good, but there are some tricky bits, and every single time I do this, it's a struggle, and I've done it a lot. So it's, we may have to try again. I've got enough materials that we can make a couple of different runs at it if we need to, but hopefully we'll be good. So, doing a puppet design right now, probably a monster. Monsters are good. Monsters are what I do. I mean, I've rarely done anything other than strictly a monster. Jelly Roll is probably the closest to not monster. Humans are boring, let's face it. That's just it, right? I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I've been super into monsters. So of course now that I'm not, I make monsters. Dr. Frankenstein making the monster. Okay, so materials overview. Let's get to this. Let's go to, hopefully the cameras are all gonna work. I've tested, but of course there's always something that goes wrong with a new setup. This is a bit weird and wonky. There we go. So to do this kind of rig, we're gonna need a couple of materials. So the very first thing is this. This is a 3 32nd inch diameter copper clad steel welding rod. I've talked about these a whole bunch. I missed that new rainbow monster. Oh, are we talking about the small back here? Hang on, we can see this small. This is my annual charity build for Pride. I try to do one of these every year, and then when this sells, all the proceeds go to the Trevor Project. Excellent cause. So this is the first one of these new types of smalls with the fleece and the fur, and I think this turned out real good. Hello. So there we go, there's the rainbow fur small. Hopefully this will be going up on the shop today, if I have time to do the product photography, but yeah, there we go. I think that small turned out pretty good. It's a good thing. Yeah, that's time dependent, of course, but Shockwoodju, hello, wow, lots of people here. That's fantastic. Okay, back to the material. So, 3/32 inch diameter copper clad steel welding rod. These are very common. This is what most professionals use to build arm rods, and also they're really good for general purpose materials for mechs. Most of the time, I mean, these are also really easy to get. You can get these at hardware stores. It's either steel welding rods or steel welding wire. It's the same thing. Sometimes they're just called something different. I feel it's a bit dark. Do you think it's a bit dark? I feel it's a bit dark. Let me see if we can get a bit more light coming in here. We don't want to blow it out, but okay, that seems a little bit better. So yeah, so usually you can get these in sort of tubes of 18-inch length. So that's what this is. This is an 18-inch length. I get them at double length, at 32-inch, but I buy them in bulk. There's like a big package. It's literally 10 pounds worth. It's like $100, but you get tons of it because I go through them so much. So this is about the average length of an arm rod, and this is what I use for arm rods. This is what most pros use for arm rods, but it's also really, really useful for building mechs and general purpose, like anything where you'd need, a rod for any purpose. These are really good, and also they bend well, but they're strong as well as flexible, so it's real good for building this kind of thing. So that's our basic thing, is we're going to be bending this wire into a shape. Now, the shape it's going to go around, the eyeballs, we're going to use for the eyeballs. Forgot pounds was also weight. Yeah, I'll bet that's the case. It's about $100 and 10 pounds worth. So 10 pounds would be almost like 5 kilograms, I think, about that. That's terrible because we're supposed to be metric in Canada, but So here's what I use for eyes that are. So you can use regular ping pong balls, of course, but for these, for a live hands monster, they tend to be a little bit. Good question. How do you know which one? So we're going to talk about that. I have talked about this before, but it's always worth going over. So let me actually get some examples out. Ping pong balls, or table tennis balls, come in a variety of standard sizes. Now, the one that's most common, I'm dropping stuff already. I really got to clean up the studio. I know I say that every time. Okay, you know what? They're buried, so we're not going to get them out. But the standard tournament regulation size ping pong balls are 40 millimeters in, I think it's diameter. It's either diameter, I'm pretty sure it's diameter. And that's like the average ping pong ball. That happened when televisions happened, because the older ping pong balls, you can get them for free from robbing your local sports center. I'm not advocating that. Thank you, Scarlett. I mean, it depends on how much trouble you want to get in, right? So 40 millimeters is the average regulation size ping pong ball. There are also 38 millimeter. And if you can get 38 millimeter, I tend to favor those for when I'm doing something that requires an eye shell, because I'll use a 40 millimeter, cut it in half, and then use that as the shell for the eye. When I'm doing like an eyelid. Then there's also these. These I think are probably a little trickier to find, but you can find them. I get these on Amazon. So these are 55 millimeter practice. Practice is the important part. This is what, if you're just learning, or, for kids or something, this is real great for them. So they're quite big, as you can see. The ones I got were too thin. Yes, that is a factor. And you know what? Let me try and dig these out, because this is kind of important. Give me a second. Let me see if I can dig into my supplies here. Okay, here we go. So, oh no, I've damaged the box of these things that I own. So, here's one brand. See if I have any others easily available. Not really. Yeah, so the thickness and opacity of the plastic is a factor. One thing I did not know before I started doing all this is that table tennis balls, ping pong balls are graded. They have star ratings. See these 3 stars? That means, that's the primo stuff. These are the highest quality ping pong balls that you can buy. If you get things that are often sold in bulk, they will be lesser star grade. So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for the star grade, because that will be a more opaque plastic and a slightly thicker plastic. Obviously, the thickness of the plastic, they're going to be very, very thin no matter what you do. And yes, there are ways you have to work with them based on that. But that's what you want to look for. The ones with the higher star grades are going to be more opaque and thicker. Sometimes, though, they won't be opaque enough. Sometimes light will shine through, or they can buckle if you put hot glue on them, that kind of thing. The hot glue is something you can't really work around. You just are going to have to be careful and try and get the hot glue on it lightly and before it comes up to full temperature. Sometimes you can get lucky. Sometimes you may have to take a couple tries at it before you'll get one that works. But in terms of the opacity, different brands I find are also better at being opaque than others. These ones, ProSpin, I don't actually remember. I'm pretty sure these are fairly sheer. There's another brand I usually get called Viper. Viper 3-star table tennis balls are probably the most opaque I've ever found. But you may have to shop around and find a brand that you can get that'll work for you. But yes, it is true that they do vary. Do you use low temperature hot glue? Yeah, if you're working with something like this, it's going to buckle under the heat. Try to. What you can do instead of what I don't actually get the specific low temperature stuff is my glue gun has 2 temperature settings. Or 2 power settings. I keep it on the lower power, and then I try and get the hot glue on there before it's completely melted. The longer you leave a glue gun on, the hotter it's going to get up to a point. So if you can get it so the glue is just starting to get liquid, but it's not come up to full heat yet, that's the best time to get hot glue in a ping pong ball. But it is tricky, and you may have to take a couple tries at it. But anyway, that's the thing. It's the star rating. That's what you want to look for. So that's that. So then we get to these big ones. Now, what the goal is here, so these are 55 millimeter. That's what I use for my live hands monsters. All of them, like Frankie has these. Like every live hands monster I've ever done that's had a rig like this has used these in some way. Toss those over there. Oh, I'm parched already. I need another drink. More caffeine. That's what's the important thing. And there the ping pong balls go. I haven't talked this much in a while. I'm not used to it anymore. I'm also going to turn the fan on. It's actually getting hot in here already. So what the goal is we want to set these in, and we want to be able to drill a hole. This is the hard part. Drill a hole directly through the center. How do you do that? There's various techniques for doing that. I'll show you the one that I use that may only work for this brand. I doubt it. I think the manufacturing process for all of these are pretty much the same. They're all injection molded plastic, so it should work for everybody. But I'll show you what I do. But before we get there, we got these logos, our Go Sports logos that are printed on these. We want to get rid of that. Yes, you can be careful and just mount these so the logos are in the back. I like to be able to let these free spin and not have to worry about that, so I just sand these off. Now, when you're going to sand off a logo like this, what you want to do, grab some sandpaper here. You want a very fine grit sandpaper. I'm going to do this over the table, even though I shouldn't, just so we can see on camera. But how you sand these is important, because this is just like a silk screened ink. And I keep looking at the wrong thing and not the camera. Again, out of practice. What's going to happen is if you take this and you just kind of rub, you're going to just spread out that ink and you're going to make a big blotchy stain, and that's not going to look good. So what you want to do is you kind of want to skim. You kind of want to go over the surface and just lightly skim it, and kind of like shoot the dust away, and just kind of go back and forth, very, very light. Don't rub it in, just sort of like skim it across the surface. So we just want to kind of go, and it won't take much. But you can see that logo is going away. And we're not leaving a big streaky mess. That's important. This hopefully will look as pristine as the rest of the ping pong ball when we're done. That's the goal. Marks on there. But that's it. Just go light and here we go. Not bad. That will do. Okay, so we're gonna do the other one. I'm gonna do the other one over the garbage pail just because I'm gonna have to do this. Then I got dust all over the surface. We don't want that. Go. We'll just take care of this off camera slightly. The camera's pointed in a slightly weird direction. You'll see why momentarily. I do a lot of prep for this stream. Things are gonna get weird. Hey, we're puppet builders. We're comfortable with weird. "14 people, good heavens." Possibly more if anybody's watching on Twitter. Twitter doesn't report numbers, so. Come on. Sometimes you get a little bit that's just resistant for some reason. Now there's a little fleck that isn't coming off, but maybe we'll put the pupil there or something. Not everyone can be normal. It's true. Normal is meaningless. Let's face it. That word is not helpful in anything other than a medical context. Okay, so here we go. We've got our nice pristine ping pong balls. Now, this is going to be tough to show on camera. I might try switching to the close-up cam for this. But I've got dust all over my hands. Get rid of that. And also, excuse me, I am going to have to blow my nose quite often. It turns out it's not allergies, it's my diabetes medication. It gives me a very runny nose and there's nothing I can do about it. So I just have to keep blowing. So I will mute the mic, but excuse me 1 second. All right, there we go. Everything's fine now for another 10 minutes. So when these things are made, they're injection molded plastic. And what that means is these are put together in like 2 hemispheres. You can't see it at all on the camera. Maybe we'll try. Can this camera pick it up? Here we go. I'm sorry for the shaky cam, but it's necessary. Can you see it? Not really. There is actually a center line. There. Yeah, it's metformin. It's a very common diabetes medication, and it's not a terribly common side effect, but it does affect some people, and I'm one of the lucky ones. There you can kind of see it right there. There is a center line. So these are put together in 2 hemispheres. I can see this much clearer than you can on the camera. But what that means is when these things are made, these are made in the plastic molds, there's a little spot right at the very kind of apex crest of the dome. It's right in the center. So what you can do, what I do, I've got this little portable ring light. It's battery powered ring light. we go here, over here. So this is going to get all special effecty. Here we go. A little lightsaber. Don't think, yeah, you can't see that on the camera at all. Sorry, this is a weird thing. Oh yes, you can. You see that little dot? There's a little dot right in the middle there. That is center. And there's one on each side. You see the little dot? So we actually can mark exact center, which is fantastic. That's what we want. So I'm just gonna take a pencil. Put this up full. So there's a bunch of different techniques for being able to mark center on a sphere. And they're all a bit fiddly. This is quite reliable and only works for these, of course. I'm just taking a pencil. There we go. Now, this is going to drift a little bit. It's plastic, it moves. So this isn't going to be absolutely exact, but it's going to be close enough. So there we go. We can mark center on our spheres. This was like an accidental discovery that's just like, oh, hang on, that's really useful. And this is a case where having the thin plastic is a good thing because we can see through it. So we'll turn off the arc light here. And so now we have to drill a hole. Maybe we'll stick on the close-up cam. When I put this close-up cam on the whole rig, I thought I'll never use this, and then I ended up using it all the time, it turns out. So in order to make a hole, you can do a couple things. You can take an awl and just punch a hole through it. That's not great because then you can split the plastic, and you don't really want to do that. The better way is to drill a hole. The problem with drilling a hole is you will always, always, always get a little piece of plastic that falls down into the inside of this, and then it rattles, and it makes a noise, and it's terrible, and it takes forever to try and get it out. We're gonna hope that doesn't happen. It'll probably happen, and if it happens, we're just gonna have to deal with it. It's one of those things. Let's see if the shoulder cam here is any good for this. Maybe we'll stick on this. So I have a little drill press rig thingy here for my Dremel. The Dremel just gets mounted on here and you put a drill bit in it. Do you use that light for photography or video? I was originally going to use it for streaming, like as a ring light for my face, but it just that came with another light that I bought as like a sort of a little free pack-in, so I haven't actually used that for anything except this. But it turns out it's real handy for this because it's just battery powered and you just turn it on when you need it and stick it in the corner when you don't. So yeah, it was just a freebie pack, but you can get them like, you know, they're like $5. They're super cheap. But any light source will work. Any light source you can put underneath it will work. A flashlight will work. So anyway, I got my little drill press rig here. These things are real handy. Dremels are one of those tools that if you're serious about puppet building, you should invest in a Dremel or a rotary tool of some kind. Dremels just happen to be the most well-known brand. But they're really, really handy. And this drill press rig here is fantastic for doing this kind of thing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put the ball on the thing. How does this look? Okay, hang on, this is all right. Here we go. You can actually see what I'm doing. What a novel concept. Sorry, I know the shaky cam is... I hate shaky cams, so I hope it isn't too much. But yeah, we're just gonna... Now, precision does kind of matter here, so you want to make sure that you're gonna get it right down into the exact point where you marked. But that's it. If you don't have a drill press, do you think you can use the Dremel freehand? Yeah, absolutely. Got to be real careful though, because again, this is very thin plastic. So go slow, hold it very, very firmly. In fact, like take a towel or something and wrap it around to sort of like anchor it. But yeah, you can do this. You can do this without a drill press. I just happen to have one, so it's super handy for this kind of thing. But yeah, you could freehand drill this. Or even like if you can put it in a vise carefully, like, you know, the vise probably crush it. Never mind that. But yeah, no, you should be able to do that. Again, go slow, be careful. And as always, I hope you're listening, young person. Safety equipment. No, I know 2 pairs of glasses makes me look extra cool. You know, that's just the burden that I bear. But always be careful. But we're just gonna hopefully can avoid. I don't know. Nope, there's a piece in there. I can hear it. Oh well. All right. I should mention this is also a 3/32 diameter drill bit as well. It's the same. It's the same diameter as the rod that we're. Very common unit of measurement. So there we go. Now, excuse me while I stand up and put this back. Oh no! I've moved the camera. The camera that shouldn't be moved. Yeah, hopefully that'll be all right. Is it all right? It's all right enough. It's not great. Oops, sorry. Anyway, so the problem we've got now is we've got little bits of plastic that have fallen in here. I don't know. I don't think you could hear that. But there's a little rattle. So I have tried, you name it, I've tried it for trying to get these little bits of plastic out of here. And the only thing I found that works is you just gotta take it and shake it. I'm very sorry. Until it falls out. You just gotta make sure you put the hole at the bottom and just do this. I'm gonna do it off camera because it's very rude. And you just gotta try and hope that eventually the little piece of plastic finds the hole and falls out. There'll be a glorious moment, one of the best you've ever felt, where suddenly you will be blessed with silence. It's true. And that's the thing, like, it's a puppet, so you don't want it to make noise, right? You want it to be, you know, puppets should be 2 things, light and quiet. Okay, a little piece of plastic came out of 1. It's not the whole thing, though. Unfortunately, this is for a real build. I think the camera looks worse. I think off camera looks like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm very sorry. We know we have a young person in the audience today, and of course we start working blue. I don't even swear on camera. Like, this is wrong. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna live with it? This is too much. This is not good stream. I think we'll live with it. I'll just make another one. I'll make a different one for the actual build. The other thing you can try and do is inject some glue in there and just hopefully glue it down. That's not great. Yeah, a model kit drill. It's a good point. So the first thing we gotta do is make sure that the rod's gonna fit. Let's go to the top here. So what we want to do is make sure that this is gonna free spin. So here we go. That's pretty good. So what you want to do is when you spin it, you don't want to see a lot of wobble, right? And that's real good. Actually, that may be one of the best I've ever done. That's that one. Come on, come out. Oh, this is terrible. It's fine. This is for demonstration purposes only. That one's pretty good too. So this is what we want. We want very little wobble, as little wobble as possible. Get a shrink ray, climb it and yeah, exactly. I mean, I tried blowing air into this. I tried everything. The only thing is cut it in half, get the plastic out and glue it back together. Oh, this is terrible. I really wanted to use this one. Or my for real. So I have a commission and I'm building a live hands monster with a blink mech. The timing just happened to line up, so I was hoping to use this one for that build. No, this is gonna have to be a throwaway. I'm not gonna put a puppet on the shop that has a rattle. You know, maybe I'll save this for a puppet for me or something, because I can get around this. Like this one you'll never hear. You know what? That's what I'll do. I have an idea for another puppet I want to make for me. That's what I'm going to use this for. There we go. Problem solved. So the next thing is, since we had to do all that, there's a couple little marks. Can't really see them. There you go. Little mark right there. That happens because you're messing with the drill press and stuff. So. Yeah, that's the thing with this, like with power tools. Sometimes you just got to get into the Zen headspace and just like, it's like knife handling when you're cooking. It's like you just got to have the experience. Go slow and careful until you get enough experience, and then it just kind of internalizes, and you get the muscle memory, and you just you get good. To use a video game phrase, I'm obsessed with getting these not to do this. Forget it. Just let it go. Let it go. Okay, so what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is just sand off these little marks. We're gonna have to sort of sand occasionally to clean them up anyway. But if you can keep it clean as you go, it's less work overall. But yes, the puppet that I have in mind for me is one that I've been planning for a long time. But Frankie, good old Frankie, has a sister named Edie. And you've never seen Edie. There's been a couple of oblique references to her, but I think I may make Frankie's sister Edie. You know what? Edie's gonna have to rattle. Maybe I could work that. Maybe Edie will wear like rattling jewelry or something, and then. Okay. Anyway. Frankie has a sister. Yep. She was referred to so in the first series, or in the first season of the Oracle, before I built the puppets myself when I had the original puppets. One of the recurring characters was Frankie's nephew, Murray, and so of course Frankie has a nephew. He's got a sibling with children, and then Frankie has a sister, and her name is Edie, and she's based on Edith Bunker. Hopefully, I'll be introducing at some point. I don't know when, but I've had plans for Edie for a long time. In fact, Edie was going to be the very first puppet that I built. I wasn't even going to build a new Frankie or Oracle. I was going to build Edie as the first on-camera puppet for the Oracle, and things changed. Anywho, What we got to do is get to the meat of it now. Here we go. So what we're going to do is, we'll go to this camera first. So we got to start bending this wire, and there's a very specific way in which we want to bend it to make, so the goal, let me just sort of illustrate what we're going to do here. What's going to happen, make a real simple eyebrow open and close type rig, is these spheres are going to get mounted something like that on here. We're going to bend a little lever, basically a little control lever that comes out like that, and then these ends are going to get bent up and around to form the eyebrows. Okay, so the very first thing we got to do is build the little control lever that's going to sit inside the puppet that you use with your finger to move the eyebrows. That is tricky. So there's a couple of little ways that I've worked on to make it a bit less tricky. So let's try, I guess we'll go to this camera, because over here, see this? This is a little vise. This is a little tabletop vise. I just got it at a hardware store. It just clamps onto the side of the table. I'm sorry for the shaky cam. It's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. You're seeing angles of this shop that no one's seen before other than me, and it's shameful. Look at this. Look at this mess. This is the fur, by the way, that we're going to be using for this build. But there. Yeah, that's all right. So the first thing we want to do is build like a loop. And that loop is what your finger is going to sit in. So the basic setup, let me grab this. This is the skull. Sorry, we'll back this off. This is the skull. And inside here, you see we've got two leather finger loops. It is nice fur. And so the way this works is you're going to put your index and your ring finger in the loops, and then your middle finger kind of floats free, and that's what controls the eyebrow mech. So we want the lever to come through. That's why I've got a little channel kind of carved out here. This channel is where that lever is going to sit. So the very first thing we need to do is make like a loop to stick your finger in. You don't have to do it this way. I know people who make like a separate loop and then attach it. This I find much sturdier and just tends to be better. It's also hard to do. So the one way that I have found to make it a little bit easier is we use our vise here. And I've got a little piece of metal rod. This is happens to be just off of a little desktop tripod. It's actually the same tripod that the GoPro is sitting on. But this is just a solid piece of metal. It's about the right diameter. I'm not even sure what it is. It's, yeah, like, I don't know, 1.5 centimeters or so. And what I do is I bend the wire around this to make a more or less correct diameter, as good of a circle as I can get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this in the vise, and we're going to clamp it down real tight. This is going to get interesting because what you want to do is avoid it shifting around. Sorry, like this. Right, it's going to wobble. You don't want that. So you want to clamp it down really, really tight. It's pretty good. Okay, so this is where it gets weird. We're going to try this. So you can see on the rod, I've already marked center. So this is an 18-inch rod. This is the standard size. You're probably going to end up cutting it down, but it's better to cut it down. You can't add on later. So always start with a rod that's longer than what you want. And we're going to use that center line as just kind of our starting point for where we're going to, let's see, what's the best direction to do this from for the camera. You know what? To make this a bit easier on myself, go to the shoulder cam here. This is a standing desk little platform, and I can take this and I can raise it. You've seen me do this before with the sewing machine, I'm sure. But it's just gets it up to sort of a better height for me. I know the camera's going to get cut off. There's nothing I can do about that. I mean, I could, but it would be even more shaky cam. So this is just a little bit easier for me to kind of work over here. And the nice thing is, where's the close-up? There we go. I mean, since this camera is riding on it, it just stays the same perspective, right? So what I'm going to do, let's try this. Go over here. There's only so far these wires will let me. That's not too bad. So I'm going to bend this around. Now your center line is going to move. It's going to shift. But you just want to get it. This is why you want to use a longer rod than you're going to end up needing. And get some elbow grease going and just bend it all the way around. All right. So there we go. That's not too bad. So there, that's all. Just make a loop. And we're done with this. Ugh, so we're going to try and get rid of it. Then it's very important to have a sip of iced coffee. Okay, so you can see why this is getting weird. This camera hold thing is like, it's tricky. It's tricky, but I think it's working. Let me know if you're having trouble following this, because this is the best that I can do to get down into the sort of see the detail of this. So as you can see, our center has shifted a little bit. That's fine. These rods are longer than we need, so we've got room to play. So the next thing we want to do, after we've got our loop, is we want to make both of these rods go in the same direction. And the distance that we do that, well, at the moment, the distance isn't important, but we want to make these both going in the same way. So I'm going to take this and clamp it into the vise with the rods kind of pointing up. So if you can see how that is. Good, I'm glad, it's easy to follow. So yeah, these are going to be a little bit wonky and offset, but that's all right. It'd be helpful I get this camera up higher. Maybe we can put it on a box of ping pong balls. Nope, that's not big enough. Is there anything that I've got that's going to be better? I don't think so. Unfortunately, we're going to have to stick with this. All right. So basically all I want to do is bend these around. It's going to get asymmetrical at this point, right? So try and help it there. But, and again, it's not going to be perfect. Don't worry about it being perfect. But you can see now they're both going in the same direction. How's that? There we go. Okay, so what we've got is our little loop at a right angle here. What I usually do at this point is I clamp it into the vise, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I whack it with a hammer a few times. We get real blacksmithy here. You just kind of want to line these up. You want to get them as straight as you can. You're not going to get it perfect. It's okay. This may get weird with the camera. I'm going to back this off. Thankfully, it's a GoPro, so it's rugged. I don't know. The camera may fall over. I don't know. But I'm just going to take this, take a hammer, and give us a few good whacks just to make sure they're nice and sort of flat and square. Boom. That's fun. I'm also knocking other stuff off the table that I shouldn't knock off the table. It's probably bad. Go. It's fine. No, the rubber mallet wouldn't do much good for this. This is, you need a good solid one. The rubber mallet is for when I'm using punches and like punching holes in leather and that kind of thing. So there we go. We've got, now again, these are kind of pointed. We've got our dowsing rods here, right? That's okay. That'll be all right. So what this is now is this length here. Here's the best angle to get it at. That's not bad. So what this is, the next thing we're going to do is bend these at a right angle, and that will be the axle of the eyeball. So this length is what the length of our control rod is going to be sitting inside the puppet head. So we have to decide how long that is. Now, the skull, where are we here? Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, that's all right. So the skull, as you can see, is pretty shallow, right? This is the front, and this is going to be sitting in here. And this skull is very shallow. There is not a lot of room in here. So this control rod needs to be quite short, but it needs to clear the diameter of the ping pong ball. I have measured this ahead of time. That's going to be about 3 centimeters is what we want, but your case will be different. Just make sure, and you may have to do some trial and error, that when you decide at what point you're going to bend this, that you're making this long enough but not too long. If it's too long, then you're not going to have any room inside the head. So I just happen to know, because I've done this a billion times, that it's about 3 centimeters. So I'm going to measure from the point of bending. It's going to be inaccurate, and that's okay. Frankie's skull is, yeah, this is exactly the same pattern as Frankie. This is exactly how I made Frankie's rig. Spilling all the secrets. There we go. We're going to mark about 3 centimeters right there. So now's where it gets super weird and interesting. Also, very thirsty today. Okay, so now what we want to do, we want to bend these out at right angles from where they are, and that's going to be the axle. Needle nose pliers will help, but very often you just have to get in there with your hands, and this is where it can get really asymmetrical and off balance. And there's no easy solution. This is where it can go wrong. Is it better for the skull to be shallow for the eyebrow rig? No, actually. It's better for the skull to not be shallow. The more room you have in the head, the better it is, or the easier it is to do this, because you'll have just more room for the clearance of the axle to move. I happen to like small puppets, I happen to build small puppets, and I happen to like the shallow skulls, so I just got to deal with this. Animal is a very good example of this kind of thing. Like, Animal's skull is very, very shallow, but his eyebrows have a really good range of motion. I'd love to know exactly how they did that. There's a whole bunch of different theories about how Animal's done. I'm not sure it's this method. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but maybe not. But this is better if for a more room in the skull is always better for this kind of thing. That's one of the reasons why in this I carved away, see that channel in the center? Before I glued this together, I carved a big channel in the center because this is inch-thick foam. If you use inch-thick foam for the top of the skull for this kind of thing, then you don't need to build a support structure. If you don't use inch-thick foam, then you do need to build some kind of support structure for the eyeballs to sit on. But since I use inch-thick foam and I don't have to build scaffolding, as it were, I do need to carve away some material in there to give the control rod a place to go, right? But no, unfortunately, shallow skulls are not better. Shallow skulls are worse, but that's just what we're working with. So that is the requirement for the build. All right, so all I'm going to do is just get in there. You know what? This will probably be easier if I do this. Use the tools that you have available. So I'm going to clamp these in. That's the point at which we want to bend them. Again, getting one of these little vices, particularly for doing this kind of thing, is really, really handy. This is way easier than it would otherwise be. So let me see if I can just get her going. Yeah, that's not too bad. This is another situation where giving her a few good whacks with the hammer might help. Forgive the banging. Have a look at that. That's not too bad. So what's going to happen is that ring is going to get off center. That's okay. We can deal with that. But as you can see, what we've now got is this whole deal going on here. What are some good trimming techniques for cutting fur? We'll get to that momentarily. Thank you for the question. There's a whole, that's a big topic actually. We will definitely be covering that in more detail later, but I'll go over a few sort of quick and easy techniques momentarily. As soon as we get through this tricky part. So now we kind of got to look at it and decide, okay, what do we need to alter? So that ring is pretty off center. I'm not terribly worried about that. That's not going to affect the final build. But what you can do if it's more off center than you'd like is just slap in the vise again and true it up, right? Again, a lot of this, you'll notice I'm just mostly using my hands. Really, there's the, you can try it with the pliers, but this is enough, and I get more control, I think, with this, so that's not too bad. All right, so that's pretty good. So that's how your finger is going to sit inside the puppet, and that's how we want the axle. Now, one interesting question we'll get to in a moment is, do you put this with the ring facing down or with the ring facing up? And it really depends on, do you want the eyes to be able to close more or open more? Because with the shallow skull, you're not going to get the full range of motion. You're not going to get fully open and fully closed. So you kind of have to decide based on the character what's more important. But if you're using a wider skull or deeper skull, then that will be an issue. It'll open and close the full way. So that will depend on your build. So now it gets even trickier. So now we're going to put the ping pong balls on these rods and then bend the wires around. So this is why we need to get the little bits of plastic out first, because this is permanent. Once you do this, there's no going back. So give me one sec here. I know I'm off camera. I just gotta see what I'm doing. So you want to make sure that that's pretty loose and that'll spin without much resistance. Sometimes these are a little tight and you want to make sure that, there you go. So again, in the skull, this is what you got going on. So what we need to do now is we're going to sort of put that flat, and then we're going to bend these at right angles to start with, and then we're going to curve them around. Unfortunately, maybe we can do it like this. Like a cooking demonstration. This is where the pliers come in handy. One thing that I often do, and I'll probably do it here, is I'll sort of push the ping pong ball too far to one side and it will kind of split the plastic and slide down here. So kind of be aware of that. Maybe put a bracing hand there. You want to get these pretty close though. Right? It's not too bad. And you're also kind of looking to make these kind of in a straight line. And that you can change later depending on how it's going to sit in the puppet, but at the moment, a good place to start is like neutral, sort of making the axis all the same. I know I'm drifting off camera. So this is the hard part, is sort of getting these even. And I'm not very good at it. hopefully that won't really matter. So there we go. It's not too bad. And again, this is like, you know, your design may require that the eyeballs be a little wider apart or closer together. It all depends on the design. Sometimes for something like this, where I don't have a very specific design in mind, I'll just kind of let the build decide what it wants to be, right? Let's get the rattle. I don't like the rattle. Edie's gonna have rattly eyes. Now you all know the dark secret. So you know what? Let's go back to the top cam now. Let me put this down. Here, this is fun. I'm gonna keep it on this cam as I lower it. Shh. Oh, small things amuse me. Okay, so now that we're here, now that we've got this arrangement, so all we want to do now is try and bend these around and make eyebrow shapes, right? What's our time? 12:04. Okay, we're at the halfway mark. That's good. So the downside of doing it like this is you're not, unless you're really, really good at bending wire, you're not going to get it terribly close to the eyeball. You're going to have quite a bit of room. So that's why doing it for this style of puppet is fine, but there are, if you want to do a closer in eyelid, you probably wouldn't use this technique. You'd use like a shell technique. But all we're gonna do is start curving it in. So you can kind of make some design decisions at this point, right? So are we gonna do individual eyebrows, or are we gonna do a unibrow, right? If we're gonna do individual eyebrows, we want to try and curve this around. Yeah, no. It's not a precise science. It's a bit rough. Edie, if in fact I am going to use this for Edie, Edie should have a very kind of wide-eyed look, a very kind of bright, enthusiastic kind of look. So now these aren't going to be super symmetrical. I've seen people do these amazingly symmetrical. I have no idea how they do it. I certainly, this is one of the better ones I've made, to be honest. Once you put like an eyebrow on here though, that all that asymmetry will go away. It'll look fine. So what you can do now is kind of go, okay, well, if I wanted a unibrow, then that's fine. That's done. That's good. If I wanted individual eyebrows, I'd probably trim these down a bit and bend them, try and bend them a little bit closer into the eyeball. But I think that'll work for what we're doing. So now, as you can see, if we go to the side view, right, that's pretty much in a straight line. We've got the control ring vertical, and then everything else is horizontal. So when we mount this in the skull, we put our finger in the control rod, it'll just do that. So if we've got more room at the bottom to go down, we'll be able to open the eyeball wider. But we won't be able to close it all. Or sorry, the other way around, my apologies. Whatever way this is facing, that's going to be restricted. So we'll be able to close it all the way because we can go all the way up because there's this flat on the top, but we won't be able to open it all the way because it's not, right? So you kind of got to decide what's your priority. You don't have to decide that until you mount this at the skull. And I'm still not sure what way I'm going to do it. And it all depends. Like, every build is going to be different. That's why it's so hard to build mechs to a general template, because every build is going to be slightly different. So you kind of gotta, once you get the socket cut in the skull for where you're going to mount this, you kind of have to sort of put it in there, see what the range of motion is like, If you want to carve away some more material to try and get wider range of motion, do that. This is going to be covered with fur. Fur is very forgiving, so you can kind of get in there and really do some stuff with the skull if you need to. And in fact, that's what we're going to do next. So, yeah, that's that. But that's actually not too bad. That'll look pretty good. So that's how I do my eyebrow rigs. That's how I've done every eyebrow rig I've ever done, has been like this. Sometimes they come out better than others. Sometimes I gotta take, yeah, I gotta take more than one crack at it to get one that I like. This one's pretty good. This one will do well. But that's it. The important thing is these free spin and they don't wobble, because when these get mounted, right, as you open and close, these are gonna, if these wobble, these are gonna pull apart and push together, and you don't want that. Another thing I have done in the past is you can get little kind of grommets, little washers that you can put in the holes, and they'll kind of make the motion a bit smoother. You can also, before you bend this loop, you can put some aquarium tubing on the wire. You gotta be real careful because it's easy to mangle it, but that makes it a little bit nicer for the performer. It's a little softer in there. That's totally optional. So the next thing I want to do with these, again, since we used a tool and we're bending wire and it's all stuff, that these got a little marked up. These got a little dingy. You can't really see it on the camera, but they did. So I'm gonna clean those off with some sandpaper. But first, so actually this is going faster than I planned. Unfortunately, I couldn't do what I fully had planned today because I didn't have enough time to make the skin for the head. But one of the techniques we'll be covering for next stream is, okay, let's say you've got this, you've got these eyes mounted in the skull, everything is fine, and you want to put the skin on. How do you make the eye holes line up, right? That's a big problem, and that's not something I've seen anybody cover. I have a technique that I developed that I use for that, and I will be sharing my secret, but next stream, not this stream. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to make the skin for the head. If we did, we could go ahead and do that today, but I don't have what we need for that, so. We will, though. That'll all will be revealed. But first, so what the agenda is now is I'm going to clean these up. Then we'll get to Amanda's question about fur. And I'll just go over a real brief overview of that. And then we'll get to mounting these in the skull. Or not mounting these, but actually cutting the hole. We don't actually want to mount them yet. We want to mount them after we get the fur sorted out. And I'll describe that when the time comes. Excuse me, guess what? Sniffly Kevin. All right. Cleaning up the eyeballs. So again, same sanding technique. Just go lightly and skim over the surface. You don't want to rub anything in. That's the whole trick to it. So there are, I hear a Canadian goose, do you? You know, there's so many of them around here that I don't even hear them anymore. Like, it's just, I've tuned it out. Although Jimmy, the cat, is real fond of, every time you hear the honking outside, he gets excited. Yeah, it's pretty good. There are more sophisticated ways of doing this. Oh, what did I miss a joke? I thought you were literally, there are Canadian geese around here, so, you know. Yes, I didn't sleep well last night. Surprise, surprise. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, as, who is this, the Shrek song people? I've totally forgotten their names. The pro-COVID guys who did the COVID concert. Anyway, Smash Mouth, that's it. You can do this. Thank you. Yeah, I got there eventually. There are more sophisticated ways of doing this. Obviously, if you've got a 3D printer or have access to a 3D printer, you can print some really great mechs of this style that are much tidier and cleaner than this. This will do perfectly cromulent for this style, but if you need something a little tidier or something a little closer in, there are ways you can do this same kind of thing, but instead of doing a bent wire, you can put like half a ping pong ball shell over this and then turn that into a sliding kind of a deal. There's other ways of going about this. This is just the most basic, the real kind of, quick and dirty way of doing this, but it'll get you started. And I've never had a need to do anything more than this, for my shop at least. So that's just where we are. So the next thing is deciding. Oh, you know what? Let's do Amanda's question first. Trimming techniques for cutting fur. So first of all, I'm not sure if you mean like to actually cut the fur like from a pattern. That's real simple. Let's get some fur. Actually, let's see here. Here's some fur. So, nice orange fur. It looks very red on this, but this is actually orange. So, for cutting fur, we've got a nice, nice long shag fur here. Fur has a netting on the back. It's always set to a netting. What you want to do is when you cut this, you want to make sure that you're only cutting the netting and not the fur, because otherwise you're going to cut like a straight line to the fur. You don't want that. So all you do is you put it netting side up, get some kind of a marker. I've lost my only Sharpie. There we go. So let's say we're cutting out a piece. There's a circle. It's a very crude circle. You can do this, usually people do this with a razor blade, but you can do it with scissors, and I'm going to demonstrate that because that's obviously more accessible. So I got a nice sharp pair of scissors. This only cuts fabric. I don't use these for anything else. But what you want to do is you want to make a little hole and cut very shallow. Try to only cut the netting. And then, actually, our increasingly handy close-up cam here might do the trick. So I've got a little bit of a nick in there, and then I'm just going to go around and I'm going to slide the blade in. Easy that is to see. Slide the blade in just under the netting. No, not the Sharpie. And then I'm going to make little tiny snips. So I'm not going to do a big cut. I'm going to little tiny snips. And occasionally I'm going to pull the scissors out and reinsert them. So this way I'm only cutting the netting and I'm not cutting the fur. This is actually what I do most of the time now. I have found a lot of the fur I've been getting, this backing has like a treatment, a chemical treatment on it called sizing that stiffens it up. You can get rid of that by tossing this in the washing machine. Don't put any soap or anything. Don't put this in the dryer. Just put it in the washing machine, hang it to dry, and you'll wash away the sizing. With the sizing on it, I find razor blades actually have a hard time getting through this. So I do this more often than not these days, rather than trying to get frustrated by pushing a razor blade through, which is never try and push a razor blade anywhere. But that's for just cutting fur. Let's get it there. And you can, once you get used to it, you can go pretty fast. So there we go. And like, we don't have, because if I was to take a pair of scissors and just like cut this fur like that, you're going to be cutting the fibers, right? And you don't want that. You want all of the fibers to remain at full length, just like this, right? But then we've just cut the netting only. So that's for cutting. For trimming, let me introduce you to one of my favorite tools. It's a little expensive. I think it was about 100 to 200 bucks, but worth it if you're going to be working with fur a lot. And that is, let me grab this. This is a hair trimmer. This is a standard hair trimmer. This is a wool peanut. This is what BJ Geyer recommends if you're going to trim fur. These are not battery powered. This is quite powerful, so you got to plug these in. And they also come with a variety of guards, so you can do different lengths. But these are fantastic. So there's two reasons why you'd want to trim fur, right? You'd either want to just make this long pile shorter, or you'd want to shave it right down to the netting so you can attach something, like glue something onto it. Where are my guards? I think my guards are elsewhere. They are. Unfortunately, my guards are hiding, so I can't really demonstrate that, but I can demonstrate cutting this down to the netting. So let's say this was like, you know, the face of the puppet, and we wanted to like do an eye bag or something, right? I don't know if you can hear that, but we could just there we go. Let's go back to the close-up cam. Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta get like, these are like industrial strength kind of things. Wool peanut is a fantastic. I've had this one for 2 years. I've never had to do anything. I've cleaned it and that's it. And it's still holding up just fine. So, you know, it's a bit of an investment, but it is an investment. Like, they will pay off over time. But there we go. And then we've just clean off the stuff it trimmed away, and we've taken it right back to the netting. You can see the netting there, and that's good. And also, if you put, again, I don't know where my guards are, they're buried somewhere. You can trim it without the guard. You just kind of have to be careful, right? One thing is to never go in a, if you want a natural look, don't ever go like in a straight line. This is like a barber technique, really. Just kind of get the fur up and then brush it, and don't make them all exactly the same length. Right, so there's some, it's a little bit shorter. But yeah, to make it look natural, you just don't want like harsh lines, right? It takes practice, but you'll get there. And it is very much a barber technique. So like if you watch some YouTube videos, this is what I keep saying, like if for puppet building, go to places other than puppet builders to learn stuff. So like for trimming fur, go to like, you know, hairstyle tutorials on YouTube and stuff like that. Like you'll learn stuff that you need to know, or that would be very handy to know. So I hope that answers the question mostly. We'll be getting into more fur trimming technique in this series, because one of the things, we're going to end up with a live hands furry monster. Clipper over comb works really well if you want a longer style. I was a barber by trade for many years. There we go. Excellent. Thank you. Great advice. I am not. I haven't needed a hairstylist for many years. So I only know the crudest techniques possible, and that's take the clippers and go to town. So I hope that helps, Amanda, and we will be getting further into detail about like different fur lengths and treating fur, stuff like that. We'll be getting into that later on. in this series in much more detail than that. But I hope that's a good kind of little overview for you. Wow. Okay, good. We got half an hour left. All right. We're going. How we doing out there? Whew. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. All that wire bending and hammering, I feel like I'm like Vulcan working at the forge. I made a reference, I made the nerdiest possible reference. I said the word Vulcan and I wasn't talking about Star Trek. Help me. Oh, he's laughing at his own jokes again. Okay, what we're gonna do now is decide where on this skull the eyes are gonna go. Right, and now we've got our little eyebrow rig here. This is all good. This is all ready to go. But this is the skull that we're gonna use. Now I talked about this before. I'm sorry, this is going to be a shop puppet, or maybe not this one, but this is what I am building for the shop, this skull. So I'm not going to show my patterns on stream. I've been burned about that before. Otherwise, I would show building the skull from scratch. But it's exactly the same technique as I showed in the last series. This is very, very simple. For live hands monsters, for furry monsters, I always do a half skull like this. I don't do the full one. I do a bottom jaw and a top, like this, because the shape of the head is going to really be defined by the fur. How do you make a beaker style mouth plate? That is a very good question, and I am not sure. I've never done one, but that is on my list of things to do, is to do a vertically mounted mouth plate like that. There's a bunch of ways I could think of. The tricky part is in the patterning, right? Because it's not, you can't put it together. You can't just take a horizontal mouth plate and go like that and then have all the pattern work out. It's not gonna sit right. The fabric isn't gonna sit right. So that's something I have to experiment with. That's an unknown territory for me, but I really, really want to. That's on my agenda. One of the things that I'm going to be doing coming up is prototyping whole new models, and one of them is going to be a vertically mounted mouth plate. So that's something I may even do on stream, and maybe we'll figure that out together, because that's not something I've ever seen anybody do a tutorial for, and so I'm just gonna have to figure it out myself. But I will. It'll be fine. It's a different way of making the mouth. The mouth has to be made in two parts, basically. If you look at every vertically mounted mouth plate like beaker, you could always kind of see the seams down the side like a ventriloquist dummy, and that's because that's how the mouth plate is mounted in there. It's a little bit different. The tricky part I can see for that is the technique for putting the skin on the head. If you're doing fold and glue, that might be a bit easier than doing this method of glue and then turn that I always do. So I may have to come up with a whole new technique for doing it. I don't know. We'll see. We will get there. Thank you for the question. It's a very good question. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but we'll learn together. How about that? Okay, so anyway, we're gonna figure out where the eyes are gonna go on this skull. Generally speaking, you can kind of base that on, like, you see where the finger loops are. So we know that we want our control rod in this area here. So we don't want to go too far up unless the character calls for it, and then we'll accommodate that. But generally speaking, you want to kind of stick to about the middle. And that's really all I kind of do, is just eyeball it. Someone's got to appreciate my jokes. My dad jokes. I'm not a dad, but I have dad jokes. But what I generally do is I'll just kind of measure out. I've got my circle template here. There we go. Now, you want to do a couple of circles. Thank you. Thank you. Eyeball it. Waka, waka. You want to mark circles that are smaller, considerably smaller than the diameter of the spheres that you're using for eyeballs. And we'll see why momentarily. So I usually there's about ½ an inch in this little line right here. So I usually just kind of use that as a guide. And it depends on, again, how high up, how low down. That's based on your character. If you want the eyeballs higher up, put them higher up, but make them even. That's the thing. The other thing that I always have to keep in mind when I'm moving these skulls is when this skull has the skin on it, it's going to not be like this. It's going to be closer to this. So I always have to remember that this is going to be down a little bit like that. It's going to be a little more compressed. That won't really affect the face part, but it is something to keep in mind design-wise. So the nice thing about these circle templates is they have like a crosshairs, so you can kind of line everything up. So I'm going to take, I got a 7/8 inch, 1 7/8 inch circle here. Maybe that's a little too large. It's always better to start smaller and then make it bigger if you need it. But we're going to need to leave enough room in the bottom. So again, just eyeball it. A little crude, but that's okay. We are going to mark those center points. So for the other one, and again, how wide apart you make these will depend on how wide apart your actual rig is. But you know, that's a situational basis there. I think I need to bring that one in a little bit closer to the center. That's okay. You'll see why in a minute. The level of precision we do here is flexible. So I've got that more or less mapped out, right? Sorry, I was off the center there. But you know, it's pretty even. You're gonna have some asymmetry. At least I am. You may be better at this than I am. It would be hard to be worse. So, you know, but you can see it. We've got pretty solid lines. It's all pretty even. So the next thing we want to do is we want to join these together. Do a little kind of this whole thing, because we can remember the control rod's going to go in there. So this whole thing is going to get cut out, including the middle. So since this is inch thick, it's quite a chore to get through. I usually use an X-Acto knife for this, and it's always a bit of a journey. But I always start on the inside of the lines and then make it bigger if I need it. Always make it smaller than you need, than bigger, because you could always cut material away, but it's much harder to add. As always, be careful. Blades are very sharp. You can do this with scissors, you just may have to hack at it a little bit. But you'll see why we don't need super duper precision for this, because this is just like the socket that the eyes are going to sit in. And this just gives us a point to glue onto. So it's going to look a little rough. That's okay. If this were a fleece character rather than fur, precision matters a whole lot more. Fur is very forgiving. So there we go. We got this weird goggle-shaped hole now, right? So now we can do a little test fitting. We can kind of go, okay, well, this is going to go in there. And don't worry about this sitting too deep in. That will depend on your character. Again, sometimes characters need more sort of buggy outy eyes, and other times they need more inset eyes. This is foam. It will stretch, right? We may decide that we want that hole a bit bigger. I think we probably do, but it's better to be able to do that, right? We've got a pretty decent range of motion on the eyebrows. That's going to, once the fur goes on, that's going to reduce. It always adds bulk, so that's not too bad. So now I think we do want to set those in a little bit deeper, so I'm going to cut some material away from the sides. We don't want to cut too much away from the top and bottom because that's the main anchor points for the glue. But going in and sort of like doing this on an angle, so we're cutting away from the back more than the front, is a good thing to do. Sorry, my browser just did something weird. May need to change these blades. Have you ever used feather boas for the eyebrows? I haven't. I've only ever used fur, but I did experiment with eyelashes and using like ostrich feathers for that, and with partial success. It didn't look how I envisioned it, but that's something I should experiment with more. It's the tricky part now, of course, is I try not to use ostrich feathers at all because you cannot guarantee that they're farmed humanely, unfortunately. That's just a personal choice, but I have some ostrich feather stock already that I am going to use up eventually, but I'm not ordering any new stuff. I just kind of made that decision. It's all fur all the time. So yeah, this is a bit crude. I'm just kind of hacking away. That's okay. Like I said, it'll be fine. I think a new blade may be helpful here. Excuse me while I drop this in the sharps container. And let's try and find my X-Acto blades. Where have you gone? There you are. Yeah, see, the thing about ostrich feathers is ostriches are farmed primarily for the fashion industry. The meat, it would be different, I think, and just for my own personal ethics, it would be different if they were farmed for meat primarily, but they're not. There's some parts of Africa that eat a lot of ostrich meat, but mostly they're farmed for their feathers, and they're not farmed humanely. Again, if it was for meat, if people were, if this was helping with hunger, then that would be different. But most of the time, the meat's just going to waste. And that's a bridge too far for me. But that's, again, a personal choice. If that doesn't bother you, then fill your boots. But knowing that, yeah, that's the problem. There aren't any really good looking faux feathers. I know that Puppet Pelts recently got a bunch of faux feathers that aren't bad looking. They're still nothing I would use, and also expensive. But unfortunately, there is no real way around it. At least not that I've seen. So, I'm just kind of carving away, making a slightly deeper socket. And then every now and then, we'll just sort of seat these in, see how they're going to sit. Yes, this puppet's going to have fur brows. If this does end up being Edie, then yes, definitely. In fact, I can even show you the fur, because I love it and it's great. It's going to be a little bit brighter on this camera than it is in real life, but Edie's going to be hot pink. Look at this. Oh, that's very big. So she's going to be pink fur with black furry brows. Very much in the Frankie style. She's going to have ears like Frankie and everything. That's going to be fun. It's just a matter of me finding time to make her. That's all. So this is not looking too bad. This is pretty good. That's not bad. So now I've got to decide in terms of the eyebrow range. Now this is kind of sitting in there, and I can get in there with my finger and just kind of see. So that range of motion, if the ring is pointing down, I can close it all the way. And if it's that's the extent of the open. I have found personally that being able to open wider is better for performance than being able to close all the way. Close all the way is just for if you're sleeping or something. It is a very striking pink. And you can do that other ways, right? You can just turn the face away from the camera or something. But looking surprised is really important. So it's way more useful as a performer, I have found, to be able to go from neutral to really wide open rather than going from neutral to fully closed. So if we put it the other way around, so now I've got the ring pointing up. So that's as closed as it's going to get. And once you get the fur on that, that's going to be fine. That's going to look quite closed. But there is our full range of motion opening, and that's going to look great. That's going to be exactly what we want. So we're going to mount this, as I usually do, with the ring pointing up like that, so I can open it all the way. And you know what? That is really kind of as far as we can go right now with this. And actually it's 12:40, so we're almost at time anyway. The next phase is going to be taking the skin and then aligning the eye hole. So the big problem that I had when I first started doing this was, okay, let's say I've got this and I've glued this in and everything's great, and now I go to put the skin on, right? So I glue the mouth plate in, and then where do I cut the holes, right, for the eyes? Because obviously if you measure and stuff like that, that will give you a guide, but it's all soft materials. You're not going to get it precisely. Let's say you want to make sure that the eye holes in the skin line up exactly with the eye holes in the puppet, so because you're not going to do eye bags or something. If you're going to do eye bags, you can be a little bit less precise because the eye bags will just cover it up. But if you want this to be flush with the fur, how do you do that, right? Here's a little preview. So what I do is, at this stage, I don't go any further with this part. I make the skin for the head. I take this out and I glue the skin to the mouth, so the mouth plate to mouth plate, inside out. I wrap the skin around part way, so halfway. Then I turn this around and I get a marker and I draw circles inside, marking exactly where the holes are in the skin. Then I unwrap it, cut the holes, glue this in on the top only. So we've still got it loose on the bottom like that. Wrap the skin around, tuck it underneath, then turn it around, glue in the bottom from inside, and that's anchored it in, and all of the fur is flush and there's no gaps and it looks perfect. So that's a long way of explaining what we're going to do next time. But this is where we're going to stop for this at the moment. And you know, it's not bad. If it weren't for the rattly eyes, it was a lot of trial and error to figure that out, but once you get it down, it's like just do the pre-flight checklist. First do this, then do this, then do this. It's worked perfectly every single time. There's a couple little tricks, like you got to make sure you make the holes quite small to be able to tuck it around, but it's almost foolproof. It's worked out really, really well. So that's what we're going to be demonstrating on the next stream, which should be in 2 weeks. So yeah, there we go. We good. So there we go. That's it for this. Anybody have any questions? Because we've got a few minutes here. We can chat for a little bit. I can have more coffee, which clearly I need. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I think maybe that's what we'll do. See, I still may use this skull for the build that I'm doing next week for my client, but maybe that's what this build should be. This build should be, we're making Edie. That's not a bad idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that before now, but yeah, we'll make Edie in this build series. By the time this series is over, Edie will be born. That's the important thing. A clay nose? Do you mean clay, like actual like modeling clay? Because that wouldn't last. That would probably crumble after a while. If you're talking about something like paper clay or clay foam, that will be okay. I find them to be a little bit brittle still. I don't know if you've seen, what's the Restream just did a thing. Congratulations, you reached 100 messages. Thank you, Amanda. Yours was the 100th message today. Blah, blah. I don't know if you saw the last stream for the previous series that I did where we actually made a nose for, let me grab it, the yellow puppet that we did from scratch. Uh-oh. What happened? I'm getting very bad frames. What's going on? Whoa, what just happened? Everybody, did I just freeze? Because my PC just froze for a second. It came back. Are we all still here? Everyone's still here. I hope everything's good. That was weird. That was concerning. Anyway, the last stream that we did, let me get the bottle out of the way here. We made this nose. This is probably a really good technique for doing any kind of feature like a nose. I did freeze. Okay, that was weird. I wonder what happened. That was odd. I'll look through the logs and see if. Yeah, no, my whole PC froze up. That was weird. Amanda, go check out the previous stream. It's in the archives. Go check out the previous stream where we did this nose. That's a really good technique for doing any kind of feature like this. And it's a very simple. It's this carved foam, and then we draped this with some adhesive. This will last. This will be a very robust, and it's not difficult to do. So I hope that's good. So basically, fleece is the answer to your question. But fleece with a foam core is probably one of the best. There's other ways to do noses, of course. You can just take a sphere of foam and wrap it in fleece. For doing like a smooth, like a dog's nose or that kind of thing, modeling it in a material that is something like clay foam or paper clay. I've used paper clay quite a lot. That's probably a good way to do that. The trouble is, of course, that puppets tend to get knocked around, and so that kind of thing can chip and break, and so you may have to repair it. That's the only thing. You want to try and make your materials be very robust. So casting features like a nose or eye bags, casting it in a material that is hard but light is probably the best thing you can do. So something like, if they're small enough, resin casting is really good. We'll cover resin casting at some point. We're going to do that. But even like repurposing, materials that are around, like you could take half a ping pong ball and paint it and then mount it like that. There's lots of things you can use. Just make sure that the materials are strong, that if it gets knocked around, they're not going to break or chip, or just be prepared to make repairs. That's all. But I like that technique for doing like if you're doing a non-smooth nose. the Hangston latch technique, as we discussed on the previous stream. Woo! All right, anything else? Who's got, come on, hit me. Hit me with questions I probably don't know the answer to. I'm concerned about my new and somewhat expensive PC. Suddenly freezing like that, that was very odd. Oh well, first stream back in a while. There's probably going to be some weirdness. Getting hot. It's my wife's birthday tomorrow, so everybody wish Margaret a happy birthday. She sometimes watches the VODs of these. I don't think she's watching right now. Oh yes, I guess what I didn't talk about was I've nuked the TikTok channel. So I am still making content like fun, you know, Oracle videos, but I decided that doing a special edit just for TikTok was just too much work. So it started to stutter when you stood up to get the nose. That's a good point. Maybe I jostled something I shouldn't have. I'm working on my goblin red cap. I used the glue technique for the ears. Nice. Happy early birthday. Yes, I will pass that along to Margaret. Oh, you know what I have to do next? I have to do product photography. I have to get the two smalls up on the direct shop. It's speaking of the shop, it's slow. I mean, not just me. Everybody that I know of who sells anything is things are really slow right now. But that's okay, because now what I do is, I mean, for me, thankfully, I have enough flexibility that if I do have a slow month or two, it's fine. Like I'm not gonna not be able to pay my bills or something. But what I tend to do in times like this then is now is when I'll like prototype stuff, right? So that's kind of why I'm going, okay, the vertical mouth plate thing, let's get that conquered. And I want to do, I talked about this on my Twitter a bit, I want to do a new design for the shop that is kind of based on the Skeksis or Uncle Deadly, that kind of thing, that real kind of, you know, creepy, lanky. I'm gonna put red markings like war paint on it. Sewed fleece, I'm a bit stuck. So one little secret weapon that can pass on that I know for a fact a lot of pros use. In fact, Phil Fletcher does this. If you're going to do features like that, honestly, it seems counterintuitive, but get yourself some markers and you draw it straight up, draw it on the fleece with markers, let it dry really well. And if you want to shade it, you can use like a cotton bud and some rubbing alcohol, and you can actually like shade it. That's very, very common for doing markings, like that kind of thing. I've done a little bit of that. The Oracle has some of that inside his ears. I've shaded the inside of his ears using marker. It's very, very handy, like just Sharpie style markers. Very common. BJ Geyer has made entire puppets that are colored with just marker that look great, and you never know. I mean, it's just ink, right? It's all it is. It's just ink, and you're applying ink onto a surface. You got to be careful, of course, because it's wet ink, so you got to let it dry. You have to make sure you're not going to get streaky and all over your hands and stuff. But yeah, absolutely. Try a couple test runs. Sharpie style markers are the best because they tend to dry quickly. But yeah, that's a very common way of sort of getting marks onto a puppet. I mean, I use markers every time I do a tongue. That's how I do the shading on the tongue. So there you go. Another question answered. That's one of the things I have to do is I'm out of pre-written viewer questions. I have to solicit more viewer questions for the next stream, I think, because we're getting through this. The problem with doing this style of puppet on this series is there was a lot to show today. There'll be a fair amount to show next time. But after that, I mean, it's just a matter of putting the pattern together and sewing it, right? And don't use water-based ink. No, that's why it's all alcohol-based. But yeah, there you go. It's great. I know a lot of people who don't even, I don't do this, but I know a lot of people who do the uvulas, the little black bit in there. I know people who draw that on with marker, and it looks fine. I use sticky back velvet, and I cut these on a Cricut, and it just tends to look a little bit neater. I'm not very good accuracy wise with the marker, so this is more accurate than I could ever be drawing it. But if you're good with accuracy, then yeah, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with markers. And it seems like it should be harder than that, right? It seems like it should be, we should have to work for more, or there should be some kind of technique or something. And it's like, nah, just draw it. Just draw it on. It's fine. Again, alcohol base, let it dry. You're good. Woo. Okay, we got like 5 minutes left. Yeah, the small's good. I like them a lot. And they're really nice because like I had a kind of a busy week, and I didn't have I didn't have as much build time as I usually do, and I'm probably gonna be the same next week. But small, like I can knock one of those out in a day, like one session in the shop, and I can do a small. So they're really nice for that. You know, that's why I tried to not do too many of them, because if I went for it, I could just do like a small every day, and the shop would be nothing but smalls, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do want more variety than that. So that's one of the things, I guess, after we do the live hands monster. Let me think, because so the next stream is going to be mounting this iRig and getting the holes lined up and all that stuff. After that, it's really just sewing everything together and you're done. We'll be doing, for Edie, we'll be doing features like Edie's going to have ears. Do you ever sell at festivals? I don't. I started business just about when COVID hit, right? So everything but everything has been remote. I would. The problem is I just can't make enough volume myself to warrant that. I'm lucky if I get 2 to 3 puppets a week built, and even that's pretty much stretching it for me. So everything that I sell just goes up on the shop. I'm not sure how well in person would do in where I live in Toronto, so it's not a real creative focused city. It's very what's the word, very normal. There's a lot of very normal people around here, and I don't think I'm not sure puppets would be a big thing, but you know, I could be wrong. There may be a huge puppet underground that I don't know about, but I doubt it. But it wouldn't, I would absolutely love to. What I would love to do is be able to travel a little bit and like go see people, go see clients that I have, that I've had, you know, repeat clients. I'd love to go visit Swazzle in California. That would be great. I would love to, you know, meet people that I've built puppets for. Yeah, you know, normal, like it's a pejorative, right? Okay, I think that's gonna do it. We're pretty much at time here. So thanks for the visit. Thank you everybody for showing up. This was a good one. Again, we keep having these good streams. It's weird. I'm gonna look into the technical issues that we had there. The logs must tell me something. They have to be good for something, right? So the next stream should be, let's look right now. 24th. The 24th of June, 11 a.m. Eastern. Sock puppets for festivals, you can crank them up fast. That's true. That is true. Yeah, I'll think about it. It's definitely, I definitely want to expand. That's for sure. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna go get my lunch ready. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Join us in 2 weeks, and we'll be doing this again. Thank you so much. Happy building, and I hope you have a great day. Here we go. Click the end button. Goodbye.